Friends, listen to me closely tonight. Billy Graham stood for a singular, crystalline truth in a world choked with doubt. And the things he revealed about the ultimate story, the story of the passion of the Christ, should not shock you into fear, but shock you into action. Many people look at that story, the whips, the thorns, the road to Golgotha, and they see only suffering. They see a historical event, a dramatic piece of history, but Billy Graham always told us that what lies at the heart of that passion is not the cruelty of man, but the unfathomable love of God. And that, my friends, is the most potent motivation available to the human heart. You are here right now facing your own trials, and maybe it's a financial burden that feels like a stone around your neck. Maybe it's a family struggle that feels like a betrayal. Maybe it's a deep personal doubt that tells you you're not worthy, that you can't be forgiven, that you can't start over. Those trials are heavy and they feel like the end of the road. But the shocking revelation that Billy Graham pointed to is this. The passion proves that your burdens, your sins, and your failures, everything you carry, have already been accounted for. You are not fighting to earn grace. You are invited to receive it. The commitment shown on that cross wasn't just to an idea. It was a commitment to you. This should change everything you do every single day. If you truly believe that you have been given a gift so immense, a forgiveness so complete, a love so unconditional, how can you settle for a life of mediocrity? How can you remain paralyzed by fear? How can you hoard your gifts and talents when you have been commissioned to a life of service and generosity? The commitment is simple, but it is radical. Live your life as if the ultimate sacrifice was made for you. Because according to Billy Graham's constant message, it was. That kind of love is a fire. It should burn away your apathy. It should incinerate your excuses. It should motivate you to stand up straight, to forgive those who have wronged you, to commit yourself fully to your highest purpose, and to live with an honest, humble, and powerful joy. Don't be shocked by the pain in that story. Be shocked by the power of the redemption it offers. Go out and live like you've been set free. Friends, let us settle on the most fundamental truth, the one that the Reverend Billy Graham always brought to the fore, cutting through the complex theological webs that so often ensnare sincere hearts. The first key point we must grasp is that when we look upon the profound narrative of the suffering, the intense, agonizing reality of the passion of the Christ, we must consciously choose to see beyond the blood and the wood. We must focus on love, not suffering. It is easy to get caught up in the horrific detail, the brutality of the scourging, the mocking crown of thorns, the immense physical weight of the cross. If all we see is pain, then the story becomes a tragedy, a historical account of human cruelty. And while that cruelty is undeniably present, to fixate solely on the suffering is to miss the central, most powerful, and truly motivational signal that Billy Graham preached to millions around the globe. The suffering was not the end of the story. It was the measure of the love. The suffering serves only to quantify something utterly unquantifiable, the unfathomable love of God. It demonstrates the distance one was willing to travel, the cost one was willing to pay, to reach out to a broken world. Think of it, if the commitment was merely to an idea, the price would have been a few uncomfortable words or a brief imprisonment. But because the commitment was to a relationship, to the reconciliation of humanity, the price had to be absolute. The extent of the physical pain reveals the depth of the spiritual devotion. This insight that love is the operating principle is what transforms the narrative from a historical sorrow into a potent spiritual power source. If we understand that the act was motivated by love, then our response is not one of pity, but of overwhelming gratitude and motivation. We realize that the force driving the event was not vengeance, not duty, but a desire for connection that was willing to endure everything. Billy Graham always insisted that this truth, that love is the central axiom, is what makes the message universal and applicable to every single person, regardless of their background or current struggle. When you face your own personal Golgotha, your own seemingly unbearable challenge, the message is not suffer more, but look at the love demonstrated for you. This focus on love liberates the heart from fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough. All of these evaporate when confronted with an unconditional love that has already paid the ultimate price. That love is the most potent energy available to you. It is what fuels genuine charity, sustains relentless hope, and provides the bedrock for moral courage. Therefore, when you reflect on the passion, you are not merely observing an ancient scene. You are drawing from an inexhaustible well of divine love, and that, my friends, should be the engine for every good work you undertake. Shift your focus from the terrible means to the incredible loving purpose, and watch your own life be transformed. The second essential truth that Billy Graham articulated with profound clarity, one that should truly shake the foundations of your understanding, is the principle of universal atonement. This is the shocking revelation we must internalize. The heaviest burdens we carry, our sins, our failures, the immense weight of our cumulative mistakes, and even the trials that seem too much to bear, have already been accounted for. The debt in its entirety has been settled. This realization is fundamentally motivational because it shifts the entire framework of human striving. Most of us live our lives under the exhausting assumption that we must continuously strive to earn our peace, earn our worthiness, or earn forgiveness through endless effort, self-punishment, or meticulous adherence to rules. We are constantly fighting a losing battle against a running tally of imperfection. We try to be good enough, smart enough, successful enough, believing that if we just push harder, we can eventually balance the scales. Billy Graham's consistent message, rooted in the profound act of the passion, was that this ceaseless striving is unnecessary and, in fact, misses the point entirely. The universal atonement means that the ultimate price was paid for everyone, once and for all. This single completed act on the cross signifies a final, decisive action against the power of sin and death. It is the cosmic, paid-in-full receipt stamped on the ledger of humanity. Why is this so powerfully motivational? Because it removes the paralyzing fear of failure. If you believe your entire worth depends on your next perfect performance, the fear of making a mistake can cripple you. You become hesitant, risk-averse, and conservative. But if you truly grasp that the largest, most existential debt, the spiritual one, has been cleared, you are suddenly free to take significant, courageous risks in your personal and professional life. You are free to commit fully to a difficult mission because the ultimate consequence of failure has been negated. This doesn't grant license for irresponsibility. Rather, it empowers radical responsibility. When you are no longer burdened by the need to self-justify or constantly apologize for your human frailty, you are liberated to dedicate your energy toward positive, constructive action. Your motivation shifts from fear-driven performance to gratitude-fueled service. The message of Billy Graham was clear. Stop trying to carry a weight that has already been lifted. Your burdens are immense, yes, but the capacity of the sacrifice was greater still. The shock is that you are not under condemnation. You are under grace. This universal and complete redemption is the most powerful catalyst for a life lived without regret, a life characterized by profound courage, genuine humility, and an infectious, unstoppable joy. Realizing that the deepest debt has been cleared allows you to invest your full, unburdened strength into the calling God has placed on your heart today. The third powerful key point, continually emphasized by Billy Graham to millions, is the understanding that the entire monumental effort of the Passion culminates in the invitation to receive grace. This distinction between earning something and receiving something is perhaps the most profound psychological and spiritual shift required for a truly motivated life. Most human systems, the marketplace, the educational environment, even social relationships, are transactional. They operate on a performance basis. Input equals output, effort equals reward, merit equals success. We are deeply conditioned to believe that the greatest things must be earned through tireless exertion. Consequently, when confronted with the ultimate spiritual blessing, our default human response is to ask, "What must I do to deserve it?" How many hours must I pray? How many good deeds must I perform? How much must I suffer to make myself worthy? Billy Graham's message cuts through this transactional noise with the astonishing simplicity of grace. He pointed to the commitment displayed on the cross as a gift to you, a completed action demanding no reciprocal payment. The core revelation is that the goal is not to earn salvation or earn forgiveness. The goal is simply to receive the complete forgiveness and unconditional love that has been freely offered. The effort has already been expended. This is supremely motivational because it demolishes the internal self-condemnation that paralyzes so many people. If your self-worth is contingent on your next achievement, your failures become catastrophic. But when you realize the love and acceptance you crave are given unconditionally as a gift, your motivation changes. It is no longer driven by the frantic need to prove your value, but by the overwhelming desire to respond to the lavish generosity you have received. This freedom from the burden of earning allows for a radical recalibration of priorities. Instead of expending energy trying to calculate and balance the scales of your own merit, you are liberated to dedicate that energy entirely toward the mission of service and love. The unconditional commitment demonstrated in the passion demands an equally unreserved response from the recipient. This response is not the payment of a debt, but the overflowing of a grateful heart. Billy Graham taught that receiving grace is not a passive act. It is an active surrender of the need to control or earn your own outcome. It is choosing to trust in the ultimate commitment made for you. Once you accept this gift, your life transforms from a grim struggle for validation into a dynamic, joyous expression of gratitude. The motivation shifts from the anxiety of what if I fail to the confident assurance of because I am forgiven, I am free to try everything. This powerful invitation to receive grace, therefore, is the engine of true spiritual and moral courage. It allows you to operate from a position of already being loved, not trying to become lovable. That established sense of secure worth provides the unshakable foundation needed to face any trial, endure any criticism, and pursue any terrifying, world-changing goal, because the greatest variable, your ultimate destiny, has been secured by the commitment of another. This freedom is the true shock and the greatest propellant for a meaningful, impactful life. The fourth powerful takeaway, consistently emphasized by the Reverend Billy Graham, is that the realization of such immense, unearned love and forgiveness must serve as an immediate inspiration for action. The profound truth of the passion is not meant to be a comfortable idea that we simply hold in our minds. It is a spiritual explosion intended to rupture our complacency and drive us into a life of purpose and service. If you truly comprehend the depth of the commitment made for you, if you acknowledge that the burdens of sin and failure have been lifted through a supreme act of sacrifice, then a life of spiritual or personal mediocrity becomes intellectually and morally indefensible. The core question, as Billy Graham often posed it, is this: how can you remain paralyzed by fear, doubt, or inertia when you have been given the freedom to live without the ultimate consequence of failure? Fear is the great inhibitor. It paralyzes the entrepreneur who sees only the risk of losing money. It paralyzes the student who fears failing the exam. It paralyzes the neighbor who fears the awkwardness of offering help. But when the ultimate fear, the fear of spiritual and eternal isolation, is addressed and resolved by the unconditional act of grace, all lesser fears should diminish. The passion removes the ultimate stake, granting us the freedom to engage fully with the risks and challenges of our earthly life. The inspiration for action is born out of this profound liberation. Furthermore, this immense gift demands a response, not as payment, but as an overflow of gratitude. Billy Graham taught that the faith revealed by the cross is not a passive sedative, it is an active commission. How can you hoard your time, your resources, your unique talents, or your boundless energy when you know you have been entrusted with a life redeemed by such an exorbitant cost? This realization should incinerate the petty excuses we use to justify inaction. The "I don't have time," the "it's not." My problem, the I'm not qualified. The inspiration for action translates into a relentless pursuit of good works, not because they earn you favor, but because they are the natural, grateful fruit of the faith you have received. It means stepping into uncomfortable places, speaking uncomfortable truths in love, serving the marginalized, building institutions of integrity, and fighting for justice, all with the tireless energy that comes from knowing you are already secure. The Christian life, as Billy Graham preached it, is a life of dynamic motion. It is a life lived on the front lines, fueled by the staggering commitment of the past. The love you have received is too great, too powerful, and too revolutionary to be confined to the inside of a church building or the privacy of a quiet meditation. It must propel you into the world to mend what is broken, to lift what has fallen, and to illuminate what is dark. This is the only acceptable response to the extraordinary gift of the passion, turning the truth you have received into tangible, dedicated, life-changing action. The fifth, and perhaps most challenging consequence of embracing the truth articulated by Billy Graham is the necessity of adopting the radical commission. This means transforming our gratitude for the sacrifice into a simple yet profound operational mantra. We must live our life as if the ultimate sacrifice was made for us. This is not a sentimental thought. It is a call for a complete spiritual and practical reorientation of one's entire existence. The word radical is key here. It means going to the root or origin. The origin of our freedom, as Christians understand it, is the unparalleled commitment demonstrated in the Passion. If we truly believe that an unconditional, ultimate sacrifice was made to secure our worth, our forgiveness, and our eternal destiny, then our resulting life cannot look like the life of someone who believes they must fight, claw, or worry their way through existence. Our belief must translate into a visible, tangible, daily conduct that testifies to this extraordinary truth. This means that every decision, every resource allocation, every interaction, and every personal goal must be filtered through the lens of this immense gift. If you are operating under the umbrella of infinite grace, how should you treat the person who wronged you? With radical preemptive forgiveness. If your ultimate security is guaranteed, how aggressively should you pursue a calling to serve the poor or confront injustice? With fearless, unwavering commitment. Billy Graham was famous for the sheer simplicity and directness of his calls to faith, and this key point is the behavioral manifestation of that faith. It demands that we stop prioritizing the trivial and start investing in the eternal. It means our energies should not be consumed by accumulating comforts that will eventually fade, but by pouring ourselves out in acts of love, service, and testimony that reflect the character of the sacrifice we received. It requires a daily willingness to accept hardship, just as the ultimate example did, not as punishment, but as a necessary part of a mission greater than ourselves. This radical commission provides the foundation for genuine humility and courage. Humility because we acknowledge that everything good in our life is a gift, not an earned reward. Courage because we realize that nothing the world can inflict upon us, loss of job, loss of reputation, or even physical suffering can negate the ultimate gain secured by the commitment of the cross. We are empowered to take risks for righteousness, knowing that the most critical matter is already settled. When you live with this awareness, your life becomes a countercultural force. You do not chase approval, you chase faithfulness. You do not measure success by bank account size. You measure it by the depth of your impact on others. This continuous conscious effort to translate belief into behavior, to let the enormity of the ultimate sacrifice dictate the radical purity and power of your daily choices, is what transforms a mere believer into a genuine disciple. It is the active, lived response that makes the truth of the Passion a transformative reality, not just a historical doctrine. The final and most triumphant key point, the essential emotional and spiritual response that Billy Graham sought to evoke in every person who heard the gospel, is to pivot from the sorrow of the past to the victory of the present, redemption over pain. This means deliberately choosing to focus on the powerful, transformative outcome of the Passion, rather than being paralyzed by the depiction of its suffering. It is human nature to recoil from pain. When we contemplate the brutality of the cross, the natural inclination is one of sadness, perhaps fear, or even despair over humanity's capacity for cruelty. But Billy Graham insisted that dwelling primarily on the anguish is to miss the entire point of the divine transaction. The pain was the means, the redemption is the end. The moment we shift our focus to the power of that redemption, the narrative transforms from a tragedy we mourn into a victory we celebrate and live out. This focus on redemption over pain is the ultimate motivator because it grants us an utterly secure hope. The suffering was finite. The love and the resulting grace are infinite. If the most agonizing challenge in human history, the overcoming of sin and death, was decisively accomplished through that commitment, then no lesser challenge that you face today has the power to defeat you eternally. This reality should not just soothe your anxiety, it should act as a spiritual catalyst, fueling a life of unstoppable forward momentum. The message is clear. The cross is not a monument to death. It is the ultimate glorious proof of life and victory. This truth must and should have immediate practical effects on your disposition. Billy Graham often preached that true faith is not characterized by a long face and constant worry, but by an infectious, dynamic joy. Why? Because the outcome has been secured. When you truly grasp the power of the redemption, it becomes impossible to cling to the apathy that stunts growth or the excuses that justify inaction. This redemption is the fire that burns away the dross of fear and complacency. It incinerates excuses because it shows you that the highest possible price has been paid. Therefore, your petty reluctance to engage in difficult service, to forgive a difficult person, or to take a principled stand is simply unacceptable. The magnitude of the grace received demands a corresponding magnitude of generosity and courage given. When we prioritize the redemption, our lives are characterized by a profound sense of purpose. We are not just wandering aimlessly. We are commissioned agents of a victory that has already been won. This realization empowers us to live with a powerful joy that is not dependent on external circumstances. It is a deep, unshakable gladness rooted in the security of the ultimate act of love. This joy, in turn, is the most effective form of witness and motivation, attracting others to the radical freedom you possess. Therefore, look at the evidence of the sacrifice not as a cause for sorrow, but as a perpetual, electrifying reminder of the extraordinary liberation and boundless strength now available to you. Let the ultimate truth of the passion, the truth of redemption, be the engine that transforms your life from a fearful pilgrimage into a fearless, purposeful, and profoundly joyful march.